We're now on day 9 of the Diddy trial, inside a crowded Manhattan courtroom that's become the center of one of the biggest scandals in music history. Then, something completely unexpected happened. Again. The court had already heard from high-profile names like Cassie, Will Smith, and Monique. But without any warning, Ice Cube entered the courtroom, and the atmosphere changed immediately. He didn't come to make a scene. He wasn't looking for attention or headlines. He walked in with clear intention. In his hands, he carried a folder, filled with names, audio recordings, and documents. As he opened it, the courtroom fell completely, silent. At that point, it became clear. This wasn't just about Diddy anymore. What Ice Cube revealed pointed to something much larger, a system not only designed to protect power, but to enforce it. A system that ran on silence, kept people in fear, and rewarded those who complied. This wasn't about celebrity or wealth. It was about control. And if you ever stopped cooperating, you weren't just pushed aside, you were erased. For years, people had quietly spoken about names like Jamie Foxx, Oprah Winfrey, and Quincy Jones. But now, those whispers were backed by evidence. And the person stepping forward with it was Ice Cube. Reporters had barely absorbed what was happening, cameras flashing, papers shuffling, Diddy's legal team scrambling to stay composed, when suddenly the courtroom doors opened again. Ice Cube entered with a steady gaze, like he had been preparing for this moment for a long time. The tension in the room was immediate. Some jurors sat up straighter, their eyes focused. Even the judge appeared momentarily surprised. When Diddy finally looked up and saw who had arrived, his whole expression changed. "I wasn't invited," Cube said. "I came here on my own." The judge gave a brief nod, allowing him to continue. And then, Ice Cube began to speak. Not as a performer, not as a rapper, and not as a Hollywood name. He spoke as someone who had been carrying a truth for years, and had finally decided to break the silence. He looked directly at the jury and said, "Some of you didn't realize I was never part of their inner circle." That's what bothered them the most. The courtroom fell completely silent. What came next didn't just shock the room, it shattered a long-standing illusion that had shielded the powerful for generations. Ice Cube began by talking about the club, a hidden network in the entertainment industry that everyone knows exists, but no one dares to name. The ones who smile on red carpets while making secret deals in private, the gatekeepers, the power players. They don't bring you in because they like you, Cube told the court. They bring you in to control you, and if you stop playing by their game, that's when the problems begin. He turned his gaze toward Diddy, who looked clearly unsettled. They cancel your meetings, they plant fake headlines, they spread rumors. They make calls behind the scenes. You never hear them, but you feel the effects, Cube continued. He described watching this unfold over the years. Talented, genuine artists invited into a golden circle, shown the perks of success, and then told what was expected, told to comply, told to sign the deals, play the role, and smile for the cameras. And if they refused, it didn't just cost them opportunities, they were erased. Then Cube said it directly. Diddy wasn't just part of the circle. He was orchestrating it. Jurors leaned in closer. The public gallery held its breath. Even the judge seemed taken aback and paused before asking, "Do you need a break?" Cube didn't hesitate. He shook his head and looked back at the jury. "You want to know why I'm here? Because they tried to break someone I respect, Jamie Foxx." That's when the next layer of truth dropped, and it was only the beginning. One celebrity after another would soon step forward. The real storm hadn't even begun. Reporters stopped typing. People in the room turned to listen. Cube began to explain how it all started, the same way it always does, with friendly gestures, open invites, exclusive parties, and unexpected calls from names you never thought had your number. Jamie was climbing quickly, his talent impossible to ignore, and that's when they took notice. "It starts with praise," Cube said, "then come the favors, then the control." He told the court that Jamie had come to him in confidence, cautiously, with fear in his voice. "They treat you like family," Cube said, "but only if you agree to the rules. If you don't, silence is your answer. He spoke about the now notorious basketball parties, the black SUVs with blacked out windows, the no phone policies, and the unfamiliar, often unsettling guests. It wasn't just about basketball, Cube explained. It was a test to see who you would follow, who you'd challenge, and who you'd protect. Jamie Foxx, he said, always remained respectful. He smiled, stayed composed, but never fully gave in. And that's when things began to shift. Suddenly, Jamie became labeled as difficult. Questions about his health surfaced. His name began to vanish from movie promotions and appeared instead in questionable gossip blogs. Cube pointed to the medical emergency Jamie suffered in 2023, saying it wasn't just a health scare, it was a message, and Cube wasn't done. He said Diddy's circle didn't just throw parties, they recorded them. Footage was saved, files were built. Most people had no idea they were being filmed, but they were. And once that footage existed, it was kept. Cube recalled a time when Jamie called him after attending one of these gatherings. Jamie didn't give details, but what he said stuck with Cube. "Cube," Jamie told him, "I can't talk about it, but I can't unsee it either." Just when the room couldn't grow more still, Cube mentioned another name, Oprah. "This isn't just about Puffy," he said. "It goes deeper." Cube told the court that just before Jamie's Oscar breakthrough for Ray, at the peak of his career, he received a call. It was Oprah, not to congratulate him but to warn him. She told Jamie, "You're messing this up," Cube explained. Jamie had expected encouragement. Instead, she told him to get it together and said she would introduce him to someone who could help. That person was Quincy Jones. Cube didn't have to elaborate on who Quincy was. "Everyone in Hollywood knows," he said. "To the public, he's a legend. But behind the scenes, he's feared." According to Cube, Oprah brought Jamie to Quincy's home. But it wasn't to celebrate or offer support. It was something else. Something Jamie later described to Cube as one of the strangest nights of his life. "It didn't feel like guidance," Cube said Jamie told him. "It felt like training, like I was being prepped for something." Jamie never fully shared what happened that night. But Cube said the look in his eyes when he tried to explain, that said enough. Oprah called it responsibility. Quincy called it legacy. But Cube told the court what they gave him was a leash. From that moment, Jamie began to change. Not because he wanted to, but because he felt he had no choice. Cube remembered Jamie once telling him, "The only way to survive in this industry is to pretend." And Cube said he watched him pretend for years. "But not anymore," he said. Cube leaned back, serious and composed, then added, "Quincy Jones isn't just a producer. He's the godfather." The courtroom froze. Turning to the judge, Cube clarified, "This isn't a rumor. This is a fact. And it needs to be recorded." He described Quincy as someone celebrated publicly, but feared privately. His power, Cube said, wasn't just from his musical achievements. It was from what he held over others. "You don't rise that high without making deals," Cube stated. "And I'm not talking about record contracts, I'm talking about soul trades." He explained that Jamie's meeting with Quincy wasn't a chance. It was arranged, a handoff from one handler to the next. "Cube," Jamie had once told him, "that wasn't guidance, that was instruction." According to Cube, Quincy made it appear like mentorship, but Jamie recognized the truth. "It felt like I was being processed," he told Cube, "not helped, processed." And Jamie wasn't the only one. Cube said he had heard similar experiences from other men in the industry, talented men who disappeared, had public meltdowns, or completely changed their image overnight. And they never returned to who they were. Quincy's charm might be a mask, Cube said, but the message is the same as Diddy's. Follow the rules, or your career ends. Then, he revealed something even more disturbing. Over the years, Cube said he'd seen private photographs, circulated quietly, never meant to be public. In each one, Quincy appeared, smiling. But the others in the images weren't smiling. He admitted he couldn't confirm every detail, But he was certain of one thing. Quincy isn't just a mentor. He's a middleman. And the people he answers to, we still don't know who they are. Then Cube stood up slightly straighter. You want to know how they keep you quiet? He asked. It's not just fear. It's blackmail. Cube told the court that Diddy's real power wasn't just his money, it was the secrets he kept. The footage, the files, the tapes, Cube said. Collected over decades, from parties, hotels, studios, private jets, all of it recorded. All of it was saved. All of it used as leverage. They don't just invite you to party, Cube added. They record you at those parties. He turned toward the prosecution. You want to know why so many people stayed quiet? He asked. Then ask them how many got a flash drive in the mail. Ask how many got a blocked call with an audio clip of something they don't even remember. Ask how many careers disappeared after they said no. And Jamie? He wasn't the only one. Cube said Jamie had told him about 2 other actors caught up in Diddy's events. One of them, he said, once called Jamie in a panic. The actor said he'd blacked out after midnight and woke up in a hotel room with a contract on the table. Up until that moment, Cube had mostly been talking about others, Jamie, Foxx, Quincy Jones, the bigger system, and the silence it enforced. But now, Cube turned the focus on himself. I went to one of those parties, he said. Just once. It was the early 2000s. No formal invite, no flyer, just a name, a time, and a black SUV waiting outside his hotel. They called it a networking night, Cube explained. That's what they always call it. The car drove him into the Hollywood Hills, up a long, twisting road. He arrived at a huge mansion in Beverly Hills. As soon as the gate closed behind him, the sound of it locking felt too loud, louder than it should have. His phone was taken at the door. No cameras were allowed, but that didn't mean no one was watching. Inside, it wasn't a party. It was a setup, Cube said. The lights were dim, too dim. No music, no laughter, no champagne. Just low voices in quiet corners, small groups whispering, security guards posted all around the room like they were guarding something or someone. The vibe was wrong, Cube recalled. Completely wrong. Then there were the rooms, unmarked doors. Some left slightly open. Cube said he could hear things, unusual sounds that didn't match the quiet tone of the space. And behind some of those doors, things he didn't want to imagine. He saw familiar faces, big names, celebrities, but they didn't look like themselves. Some looked lost, some looked scared. Some looked like they didn't even know where they were. Then came the moment that changed everything. Cube turned a corner and saw a man he deeply respected, one of the biggest names in the business, slouched on a couch. His eyes were wide, open, blank. And across from him was a camera, recording, silent, watching. That was it. Cube said he didn't ask questions, didn't say a word. He left, got back in the SUV, said nothing the whole ride back. But it wasn't over. The next day, his phone rang. No caller ID, no name, no greeting, just one sentence. We saw you leave, that was all. No follow-up, no threat. But Cube said he didn't need one. I got the message, he told the jury. Loud and clear. That night stayed with him, for years. It changed how he looked at the industry, at people, at success. That wasn't a party, he said. That was a trap. Then Cube turned slowly to Diddy. Calm. Controlled. You didn't just ruin lives, he said. You filmed them first. The courtroom went completely silent. Even Diddy's attorney, normally quick to interrupt, was leaning over, whispering rapidly in his client's ear. But Diddy didn't move. His face was pale. His jaw clenched, eyes locked on nothing, because this time, the cameras weren't his. And the courtroom? It didn't feel like a courtroom anymore. It felt like a confession. Even Diddy's own legal team stopped objecting. There was nothing left to say, but Cube wasn't finished. They didn't just try to silence Jamie Foxx, he said. They tried to erase him, and he meant every word. Cube looked directly at the jury and said clearly, "In Hollywood, silence isn't optional. It's not always threats, not the kind you can point to. It's a pattern," Cube told the jury. "A strategy. The kind designed to make someone disappear. Slowly. Quietly. Before anyone realizes what's happening." He said that after Jamie started distancing himself from Diddy's circle, things didn't explode. They unraveled. Carefully. Deliberately. First, the work stopped. Roles dried up. Projects he'd already been cast in were suddenly pushed back. Meetings were canceled, one after the other. Longtime collaborators suddenly stopped picking up his calls. "It didn't feel random," Cube said. He pulled out a document. A calendar showing Jamie's film and TV schedule from 2019 to 2021. At first glance, it looked like a normal industry slowdown. But then Cube highlighted a pattern. A string of back-to-back cancellations. Each one tied to a company that had some connection to Bad Boy, Revolt, or one of Diddy's many offshoots. He didn't need to say anything more. He just let the calendar sit there. Silent evidence. And it didn't stop with the jobs. Next came the whispers. The blog posts. Anonymous sources saying Jamie was unstable, erratic, losing his grip. But he wasn't losing it, Cube said. He was breaking free, and they didn't like that. Then came the health scare. Cube paused, looked down, took a breath. "You really think that was natural?" he asked, his voice quiet. "A man in peak shape suddenly collapses on set, right after he starts speaking out about what he saw?" He didn't accuse anyone directly, but the courtroom felt the weight of his words. "I don't know what happened in that hospital," Cube said, "but I know what fear looks like. I know retaliation. And that didn't feel like just a medical emergency. That felt like a warning." According to Cube, Jamie had been offered ways back in, movie deals, press runs, comeback stories. All he had to do, Cube said, was play along, shake hands, smile, pretend it never happened. But Jamie said no. And that's when things got worse. "That's when they tried to replace him," Cube said. "The clone rumors started. People began questioning everything. Was it really Jamie in those pictures? Why was he avoiding the public? Was he even still alive?" Cube didn't call it a conspiracy. He called it a tactic. "That's what they do," he said. "They break you down piece by piece until even your own fans don't know what to believe anymore." His voice dropped. "That's how they hold on to power," he said. "Not just with fear, but with erasure." Then Cube turned back to the jury. His voice sharpened. "This ain't about music," he said. "It's not even about parties. It's about control." He looked each juror in the eye. Then he nodded toward the prosecution. "They don't just shape what we listen to," he said. "They shape what we believe, what we fear, who we follow." Hollywood, Cube explained, wasn't just an entertainment industry. It's a machine, he said, built to take real pain, real identity, and turn it into something they can sell back to us. "You think it's freedom?" he asked. "It's not. It's scripted. Every album that gets pushed, every film that gets funded, it's all part of the same design." Then he said the line that made the room stop breathing. "The same people who push prison music," Cube said, "well, they own the prison." "That's what Tupac tried to warn us about," he said, before they silenced him, before he got too political, before he started pointing at the real ones behind the curtain. And just like that, the courtroom no longer felt like it was watching a trial. It felt like it was watching the whole system fall apart. Cube didn't hold back. He told the jury that the wild parties everyone loved to gossip about, they weren't celebrations. They were vetting rooms, he said. Places where artists were watched, tested, recorded. If you played along, you got protected, Cube explained. If you didn't, you got punished. It was all part of the game. Cube told a story about a young singer. She had talent, momentum, everything going for her. Then she said no. She refused to sign with Bad Boy after getting one of those invitations. And what happened next? Within months, her public image shifted. Suddenly, she was unstable, difficult to work with. Her name disappeared from award shows. Her label dropped her. No one returned her calls. Cube paused, looked at the jury. "You think that was a coincidence?" he asked. He shook his head. "Nah, that was punishment." Then came the line that froze the entire room. "I was sitting here trying to figure out what Diddy did," Cube said. "But the real question is, how many people helped him do it?" And in that moment, the silence was deafening. At this point, it wasn't just about Diddy anymore. The trial had changed. It became about everyone who had stayed quiet, everyone who looked the other way, everyone who helped keep it going. The judge leaned back in his chair. The whole courtroom froze. Even the prosecution looked rattled. This wasn't a celebrity scandal anymore. It wasn't just about one man. It was about the entire machine that allowed him to rise and all the people who helped him stay there. Then, the judge asked if Ice Cube had anything else to say. He didn't even pause. He stood up slowly, stepped down from the witness stand, walked to the center of the courtroom, not to perform, not to provoke, but like every step had weight. He looked straight at Diddy. "You built a kingdom out of other people's silence," Cube said. "You called it success, but it was slavery." Diddy didn't flinch. He just stared ahead, pale, frozen. But Cube wasn't done. "You didn't just throw parties," he said. "You built prisons, emotional ones, mental ones, and you filled them with people who thought they were being honored when really they were being watched, controlled, used." His voice didn't tremble. It only got stronger. "You broke people," he said, "and then you filmed it." Then Cube turned, faced the gallery. "To every artist watching this, every young kid dreaming of making it, listen to me." He scanned the room. Before they give you the keys to your dream, they're gonna ask for something back. Maybe your voice, maybe your dignity. Sometimes, everything. And by the time you realize what you gave up, he paused. It's already too late. Then Cube said something he hadn't said all day. I was scared. The room went still. "I was scared," he said, "because I knew what I'd seen, what I'd heard, what I'd been pulled into. And I stayed quiet, because I thought silence would protect me." He looked at the jury. "But silence doesn't protect you. It just delays the damage." Then he said it clearly. "Silence makes you a collaborator." He reached into his folder, pulled out a single photo. This was me. 1991. Bright eyes. Full of hope. Thought he could change the game, without being changed by it. He stared at the picture, then slowly held it up. That version of me? He didn't make it, and with that he tore it in half. But the man standing here now, the one testifying, he's not afraid of any of you anymore. The courtroom didn't move. Not a breath. Even Diddy's lawyers had stopped objecting. Reporters froze mid-sentence. Jurors didn't blink. It didn't feel like a trial anymore. It felt like a funeral for the silence that once protected the powerful. Cube walked back to the stand, placed the torn photo gently on top of the folder, then looked up at the judge. "I don't know what you'll do with all this," he said. "But now, you can't pretend you didn't hear it. Now you know. All of you." He turned back to Diddy one last time. "You thought no one would speak. You thought everyone was buried. But the silence? It's broken now." He nodded. "The door? You locked for so long. It's wide open." Then Cube stepped off the stand. He didn't look at the press, didn't glance at the jury. He just walked, like a man who had finally put down a weight he'd been carrying for decades. And just before reaching the exit, he turned slightly and said, "They didn't kill Jamie. They didn't kill me. They just made us louder." And then he walked out. But what he left behind wasn't just testimony. It was a warning, a turning point and the start of a storm that no one in that courtroom would ever forget.